Hi folks, welcome back to the clock shop. I have to apologize here. I said in my last video when I was working on that modern cuckoo clock that I was going to do a video on the assembly of this. And unfortunately I just ran out of time. It does take extra time to do these videos and with filming and setting up the cameras and all. I just wanted to get this done and up and testing. So here we are, but what I thought I would do is maybe run you through some of the particulars of this movement. Now, this is a Jacques 4-tune tubular chime clock. Has 9 tubes. The tunes are Trinity, Westminster, Notre Dame, and Whittington. I'll show you the dial a little bit later. So we count these up here. You can see there'll be 9 of these, and we have my makeshift rubber bands here to simulate the hammers. A couple things I don't really like about the design of these things is, well, the design of the way that the gathering pallets are fixed onto the shaft. This is not a square shaft. This is just a round shaft with a pin going through it. This is just a brass collar that the gathering pallet you see is fixed on the back there. But what happens is over time is these holes can widen here at the end of the gathering pallet. See, it has a taper pin through it here. This is the only thing that fixes it actually to the shaft. And then the gathering pallet tends to get a little floppy, which I don't care for. The only way that I know to fix is either replace this entire brass tube, or maybe possibly drill another hole through, or just peen these holes a little bit closed, which is what I did. I just put the right diameter wire through this tube and just sort of peened them a little bit closed so that there's no play here in these gathering pallets. This is the strike side, and over here we have the chime side. Now, I have had issues with these Jacques movements in the past with binding of the levers. This particular clock actually was pretty rusty. The levers had a lot of rust on it. I don't know whether this was subject to a bad cleaning in the past, or maybe it was in an area where it was a lot of moisture, but there are spots on the brass. Up here, there's still a spot that's showing there. I couldn't get it completely cleaned off. So I don't know what happened with this clock. The case itself is in pretty decent shape. The customer is cleaning that up now while I work on the movement here. So I don't know if it was just in a high moisture environment. The case doesn't belie that. Or maybe somebody just tried to clean the movement with the wrong type of cleaner, or cleaned it the wrong way. Anyway, I had to clean a lot of rust spots off these levers. Now, they do tend to bind. These levers you do have to be careful with. I did have an issue with this strike side here, and I've had this issue on previous Jacques clocks. I don't think that the geometry is quite right here between this and the gatherer and the way that the rack hook sits in here. So there's a little bit of, when you try to lift this up, you can feel it's a little bit of a bind there. Of course, now we're in the morning, so it's not going to chime, or strike rather. Let's go ahead and just move the hand up a little bit here. You can see the chime function, on that side. But I did have problems with, and I have problems with it before, and it's mostly on the strike side. When it gets to this point to try to lift the strike lever on the hour, it lifts a little bit higher. So this is the set-off lever right down here. Hopefully you can see that. The camera's focusing properly. The light on this end of the shop is not very good. So I apologize for that also. But you can see the strike working there. It strikes on 4 tubes simultaneously. You can see that. We'll let that finish there. Now when I bring it up to the hour, which I'll do here, this is where binding can occur. You can see the rack dropped from the chime side, no issue. This is where I've had the clock stop on me in the past, and I've had previous clocks do the same thing. Now you can see that this released. This is 1 o'clock, so I want you to pay attention to what's over here. This lever here is the correction. This lever, when it lifts higher than normal, it sort of stops the rack hook from dropping on the chime. There goes the chime. You can see it's going to continue running. I actually purposely had to have this out of sync until this lever is actuated. And you watch it drop. There it goes. And that's done by this cam right here, which is part of the chime train. You can see where it's connected there. That wasn't functioning properly either when I got the clock. It wasn't lifting high enough to trap this or catch this rack hook. So there I had to make some modifications to the set-off lever. Basically just bent this, just twisted it. You can't really bend these in this fashion here because they're solid. And that's a good thing and it's a bad thing. You can't really make too many adjustments. So what I did is I twisted this a little bit so it lifted a little bit higher. Now, it's one of the good things about this is you don't have levers that are riveted here in the bottom and the top with a center brass collet. Those come loose. It happens all the time on Hershey clocks, and the levers then can move. Then you have to sort of maybe rivet them tight, and if they move during operation, of course, it can really throw off the functioning of the clock. So in that respect, it's a nice design. Now, if you look down here, you can see how this works. This is the strike set-off lever, this whole thing right here. And it's got this little pivot point here. Again, another possible binding point. When it lifts up, see how that sort of lifts against this or pushes against that. And there's another small lever, which is right here. You can see that lifts up. This is what actuates the hour strike to set that off. So when it lifts higher than normal for the hour, you can see how that lifts up. That further complicates things as far as binding goes. So again, it's not crazy about this design. Like I said, I had problems like with this clock. Almost every one I worked on with binding issues. Now, one of the things I did here with this is, a couple of things I did actually was I twisted the rack a little bit so that the rack pin, the gathering pallet rests on, is a little further in. I think it helps because of the leverage. I think when the gathering pallet rests on a pin that's a little further this way, it might help reduce the pressure. I had to polish. Of course, that's a given. You have to polish all the sliding surfaces of these levers. If you don't, you're going to run into trouble. And I put a little bit of light grease on many of the sliding surfaces and the actuating surfaces too. But getting back to this here, you can see this is pliers marks on it. Somebody had problems with this in the past. I'm not surprised. And somebody actually had peened the tail of the gathering a little bit to create a little bit more material to rest on the pin. Don't know whether that helped or not. But I did get it to function a little more smoothly so that it does not bind up the clock anymore by twisting this rack so that the pin a little further in. You can't go that much further in because this lever will get in the way. If you were to drop the rack, it would just hang up on this lever if it's too far in. This one here, the gatherer rests on the pin on the chime side a lot further this way. So I think that's a leverage issue, that if it's further this way, the leverage isn't going to be as forceful against this here. If that makes any sense to you, I hope it does. But you can only go so far. This is more on the end here. So you can't really go further in that way because it'll interfere with that to help maybe reduce some of the leverage. Now you could also, maybe the relationship between this, let me get my camera down, and this could be affected possibly, but then you'd have to move this stud here. It looks like this is the way they came from the factory, and they probably had issues with this movement even when they were produced new. In a short while they would have binding issues. I wouldn't be shocked at all if that was the problem with these clocks. Now you can see I have these levers here are not populated because this actually connects to the dial. This would be for the strike shut off. This down here would be for the chime shut off. Over here would be the way you would shift to different chimes. Now with the dial on it has a cam on the back of the dial, and I'll show you all that. and it moves this barrel, this pin barrel, back and forth to allow different sets of pins to come in contact with these levers here, and that's what gives you your different chimes. Down here on the actually right here I should say, is where the moon dial actuator lever goes, because we don't put those on because they'll just interfere with the running of the clock until we have the dial on. Once they have the dial on, then they're captured in the dial pins and they don't interfere anywhere. So I'm trying to think of anything else I could show you. Down here, it's got a beautiful lyre pendulum. The weights are kind of in the way right now, but you can see as they go all the way down. Nice, big, heavy pendulum. You do have to have the case sitting on a nice level surface. Now, the case is very large on this clock, so it's unlikely you'll have any stability issues. But if you do, with the weight of this pendulum is so heavy, it can actually start rocking the case and moving the weights around. This is, I think it's called sympathetic pendulum. When the weights get down closer to the pendulum, this probably would happen on this stand, because this stand's not very sturdy. I've tried to make it as sturdy as I possibly can. I just don't let the weights run down that far. I let it run for a few days and then wind everything back up. So you do have to have a nice sturdy case, and it has to be in a sturdy, a solid floor. Excuse me, solid floor. We'll come around here. You can see the spring here. This is what pushes the barrel back. On the barrel itself, because it's out of sync, you probably don't see it. There are little dots. Let's bring it around here. Maybe we can show you those. Trigger it here. I did put a little bit of grease on these levers here, down here. See these little dots right here? That's where you want to start the quarter after. Now, this is all out of sync now. Let me bring it around again. I'll show you those dots. You might not have seen them very clearly. Let's bring it around again. Bring it around again. Right there. As you can see those dots there. That would be the quarter after. That's where you want to start the quarter after. So you're going to set it up. You're going to set it up with those dots right before the quarter after. And when you have it set up properly, then it will stay in sync because of this automatic sync lever here, if you want to call it that. Chime sequencing lever here, which is right here. Let's move over here to the dial. You can see the dial here. Nice, big, heavy dial. You have your 4 chimes here. Nice moon dial. This dial, maybe it could be re-silvered here. This one has some wear on the top. The customer didn't have any interest in doing that, at least not at this time. You can see there's this this could be water damage. This was stored in a place where, this was bought at an auction, by the way. This was stored in a place for a while where there must have been moisture, because I do see that there. That's evidence of some moisture. We have the hour strike. This is what connects with those levers, and I'll show you those levers in a minute. We have the chime silent down here. You can see the hammers. I brought them back to recover those. So the leather here was worn off, or worn on many of these hammers. So they've gotten new leather faces. The string was replaced not that long ago. The string is fine. It's a very strong, I'm not sure, like a fishing line type of string. So I left that on. Let me go get the levers here. We'll bring them over. I'll show you those. Well, actually, let me turn the dial around first. You can see. Get that way. Hopefully nothing falls. There you go. You can see the pin here. This is for the strike shutoff. That engages with the strike shutoff. This is for the barrel shifting for the chime selector. And down here, this is where the pin goes through for the strike, or the chime shutoff. And you can see the back of the moon dial there. Let's turn it back around here. Beautiful moon dial. Look at that. That's in very nice shape. Considering maybe where this clock was stored. Let me go grab the levers and I'll show you those. I have them here in the bin. There's our lever, so you can see this is what goes on in front of the movement. It engages with those pins on the dial. This would be for the strike shut off. This one is for the chime shut off. This would be your selector, your chime selector lever. Try to get that on camera. And this is your moon dial actuator that goes on the front of the movement. Actuates the moon dial with this pin right here. Well, that's about all I can think of to cover. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to leave those questions in the comments. And I'll try to answer as much as I can. Bring you back here to the movement. Show you here once again. You can see that. Running nicely now. But I will be testing this for a longer period of time than I normally do. Just to make sure we do not have any binding going on. Any clock stoppages. This clock is not right around the corner from me. So if I have to go back for further servicing, it's a bit of a hike. So I'd rather not do that. So we're going to test this for a good long time. Next one, I won't make any promises, but I'm hoping to be able to put this one on video. We have a nice little English pub clock here. It's very dirty, needs an overhaul. So we'll be doing that next. And maybe, I'll say maybe, we'll be able to do a video on that. It's a pretty simple clock. It's a fusing mechanism, so you might be interested in seeing that. All right, folks. That's going to do it for this video. Once again, I apologize for not videoing the entire assembly of the chime clock there, the Jacques. I did have to put, I think, 4 or 5 bushings in the movement, in addition to all the polishing of the levers and the cleaning, and it was a long process. It always is with these type of clocks. What else was I going to say? New cables, of course, on it. And interestingly enough, though, the chime wasn't really that badly worn. I don't think I had to put any bushings in the chime train. It was mainly the strike train and the chime train. What that tells me is they didn't operate the chime train that much. They probably kept that shut off. And you can do that with these clocks. You can shut off the chime and just have it strike the hour. I think that's probably what this clock had been put through, or what was done with this clock. It was mostly just used as a striking clock on the hour. All right, folks, that's going to do it for this video. I hope you enjoyed the little synopsis here of our Jacques clock. And, well, don't hesitate to put a thumbs up on this video if you do like this kind of material. And if you do like this kind of material, join the channel and join the club. We'll be posting more videos on all kinds of different clocks in the future. So keep an eye on this channel. All right, folks, take care. We'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.